What's up, gang? Welcome to the Greatness Machine. I'm your host, Darius Marsico. I'm so pumped to have you here with me. Now, listen, the Greatness Machine, we're about two things. Number one, people who are living their passions. And number two, those who are creating greatness in the world and doing both of these things despite the odds against them. Each episode, we're going to feature interviews with game changers, business leaders, telling us their origin stories, what made them tick, what got them to where they are now. Why? So it can help you step into your greatness within your life, your business, and your career. Occasionally, you might hear a few solo episodes from myself, moi as I say, as I leverage my 20 years of entrepreneurship as a CEO and founder to help you grow and level up in your journey to scale your life and your business. So, come be a fly on the wall, enjoy the conversation, and I'm stoked to have you here with me. Guys, welcome to today's episode of The Greatness Machine. I'm your host, Darius Marsico, and boy, do we have a special guest. Giovanni Marsico is in the house. What's up, Giovanni?
Mr. Darius, nice to see you.
Oh, nice to see you, my friend. Oh, do you mind if I do a little bit of housekeeping and then we'll get rolling here?
Perfect.
So for listeners who are new to the show, The Greatness Machine, we're about two things. People are living their passions and those creating greatness in the world. And Giovanni is neither short of passion nor greatness. I've been a fan from afar. You don't know this, but I don't even know how the hell I stumbled on your amazing work, but I did. And I've just been watching the stuff you're doing, the events, the masterminds, the movie, the documentary. I was like, man, this guy seems like a fucking badass. I want to get him on the show. And you don't know this. I'm just like stalking you a little bit on social media. And then you and I figured out that we have a mutual friend in common, Dr. Jeff Spencer. So I hit up Jeff. I'm like, hey, see if Giovanni will be on the show. And then I don't know if you even did, but then my team hit you up and man, here we are chopping it up on the Greatness Machine. So welcome, my friend.
I'm very honored to be here. And thank you, Jeff. He did reach out. So he's
good. Jeff's going to be on the show in a couple of weeks. So I'll thank him. I'll give him a big virtual high five when I see him. So Giovanni, do you mind if I give your formal bio and then we could get right to it? Does that work?
Sure.
Awesome. So I mentioned it earlier, but Giovanni is the 3-time Emmy Award-winning producer of Dreamer, which is a documentary, and he's the founder and CEO of Archangel Academy, business mentor to change makers, TEDx speaker, and like I said earlier, just all-around badass. Man, you're doing a lot in this world, my friend. How'd that come to be? I'd love to hear the origin story on like what got you. I mean, I'm guessing you didn't just come out of the womb and start doing all this badassery. Maybe so, but I'd love to hear some. So give me the origin story.
I like to start the story when I was really young because there was a pivotal thing that happened when I was 10. In grade school, we kept moving a lot, and I was always the new kid, always bullied. And in 5th grade, the schools did IQ testing. And then I scored super high on my IQ test, was labeled gifted, and I'll put that in quotes. And then because of that, once a week, I was bused to a different school for gifted classes. And then when I came back to my regular school, I was bullied for being smart, which was very weird and painful, and I didn't understand it. And I learned to hate the word gifted until high school. And this is in the 90s, so pre-internet and Marvel movies all over the place being cool. So I used to love comic books, and it wasn't cool back then. You had to read it in secret kind of thing because you were called a nerd or a geek or whatever the word is. And those words weren't cool back then either. And I discovered, I loved Spider-Man and Iron Man and all that. But when I read my first X-Men, the first page I opened, I saw the words Xavier School for Gifted Youngsters. And the word gifted was there again. And it meant superpower. And it reframed my whole life. And in high school thought, wow, okay, so the thing that makes you stand out is your superpower. And it's also a curse, but if you understand how to shift it, it's something that you can do something with. And I started producing dance parties for kids when I was 16. It's all around the same time. Our first event had 1,000 people. And it was like 1,000, 2,000, 3,000, 5,000 people a week kind of thing. And producing these massive, crazy experiences, but it was all a safe space for kids to party, no drugs, no drinking, just fun. And I really quickly discovered my passion for bringing people together.
Nice.
And when I was in high school, I said, when I grow up, I want to lead a team of superheroes. That was my thing. And everyone thought I was nuts. And I thought, yeah, okay, great, but that's my thing. And then if you fast forward the story to today, we have a global community of real life superheroes who are entrepreneurial or artists or people doing really big things to impact a lot of people. And as much as I love superhero films, I'm like really love them. I also think that people need real life people to look up to or aspire towards to be, heroes in their lives. So we've started documenting stories of people, and that's where the movie came from. And there's a whole bunch of stuff in the middle of this story, but I feel like what's wild, and because of the theme of your show, is that I was able to build a multi-million dollar successful business based on the X-Men, which was like, why not? Based on curating really incredible humans who have gifts that they're sharing to help other people, completely designed based on who I am. And I don't have to pretend. The way we do everything and the way we curate our communities and our clients and our members of all the things we do is that you have to be kind, you have to be humble, you have to be super giving, and kind of the opposite of what a lot of things that happen out there with giant egos and all that stuff. Not that we're against making a lot of money, but I think, I like to reframe the word millionaire to mean help a million people and get compensated for that. Yeah. So it's totally cool to make a lot, as long as the heart part is there first, and that's who I am and who we are.
I love it, man. I'm gonna plug myself for a second. So I had a company that I sold, but our BHAG was to help 1 million homeowners gain and retain home ownership through our business. And I set the goal in like May of 2013, and then they just hit it in August of 2022. So
that's epic. I love that.
I'm in the million club on that. I qualify to be cool, maybe in your eyes. Nice. That's cool. Yeah, but it's funny, right? Like you start thinking about that because that's all about leverage and scale, right? Like if I'm going to help a million people, like how do I? And that was how I thought about it, because anyone could set a BHAG around growing $1 billion company or something like that. And I was like, well, what are we really trying to do? We're really trying to help people, Right. And if we can do that would be huge. Like what would we need to be in order for that to happen? And by the way, when I set this goal, there was like 13 people in the room, and they maybe helped a couple hundred people, right? And so I didn't have an answer for it, but I totally resonate with what you just said. Well, first of all, man, that's really cool. I love that story. I'm just going to say that kids can be assholes and they can't appreciate gifted gentlemen like yourself. I can. Appreciate many gifted human beings. I myself was part of, we have two things in common. I was labeled gifted, and I was a comic book stud. I don't call them geeks, up until about 16 years old. And then I got really obsessed with wrestling and girls. We have something else in common. I was actually a nightclub promoter in college. So you were doing parties up in Toronto. Do you ever meet a guy named Ron Rivlin?
That's not familiar. No.
Okay. He was a big club guy up there. I met him in Hollywood. But anyhow, so you were in the nightclub scene, it sounds like, or underground party scene, or am I somewhat close?
You're right on. And my we're talking about names pre-show. So my name is Giovanni. That's the name I was born with. My parents are from Italy. They moved to Canada. But growing up, part of the bullying was the name thing. So they started calling me Johnny and John, which is like the English translation. So a lot of people, like growing up in school, people would call me John. My nickname during all this party stuff was Johnny Angel, because even though I lived at night, I lived in clubs, I was producing all of these events. I still have never been drunk. Up until a few years ago, I had never touched a drug. And now it's more psychedelic healing stuff, which is a whole other path. But so it was like I was in the I don't know what to call it. Like I was nightclub scene, but I was what they called a good guy, which was weird, especially because I ran the events. So that, and then my elementary school where I was bullied was St. Gabriel the Archangel. My high school where I started parties was St. Michael's. So that Archangel word has just followed me my whole life, and the angel thing. So it's just interesting to connect the dots looking back, that these things were like Easter eggs in my story. And now everything's come full circle.
Oh man, I love that. That's like the higher intelligence is playing with you and showing you the signs
For sure.
early on in life. And um, so yeah, so how did that like walk us through like how did that transpire into, you know, this big thing you're doing now? Because, you know, Archangel is, it's a big deal. You guys have, I mean, I see your events, I see the people that you're connecting with, I see the community you're building. I'd love for you to kind of tell the story of how that came to be, because
For sure.
you really are making some big waves out there.
So um, throughout all the party days, the messaging from my parents back then was stop doing this stuff, stop dreaming, get a job, get your degree, all that kind of stuff that many parents tell their children, which I think was useful. And I get where they were coming from. But I think for a lot of people, if you're entrepreneurial, it's kind of hard to hold that back. And then uh, it actually caused a lot of anxiety and depression because it wasn't aligned with who I was. And I was trying to make them happy and fulfill that stuff, which wasn't my dream. I did that path. And then I did a bunch of jobs. The last job I ever had was running the marketing at a company called Strategic Coach for a guy named Dan Sullivan.
Okay.
And that ended it. Like I quit in 2005 because now I'm being around all of these successful entrepreneurs that are his clients. And and Dan has this line too, I think, but the line is that I'm unemployable. Like, I need to do my own thing. So I left there to start marketing, coaching, and consulting. Eventually that led me into the real estate space in Toronto because one of my clients, I helped them grow their business, and then we partnered up. I actually never wanted to do real estate. I feel like real estate's probably another commonality we may have, but I did really well, started winning all these awards, doing really great as a realtor in the investment space. And because of that, I got to invest in my own personal development. I started joining mastermind groups and going to conferences and going to all kinds of events, realizing none of them hit me the way I wanted. Like, it wasn't what I actually wanted. There was always something missing. Yeah. And I love events. I love producing them. So I thought, okay, why don't I, as a side thing, start bringing people together that are like me, where it's how do we make a lot of money and impact at the same time, not have to pick one or the other. And that was how Archangel was born. Our first event was in 2014. By 2016, it just started snowballing so big that I quit all of the real estate stuff, went all in. We did our first Archangel Summit event that year, had 1,500 people with speakers like Gary Vaynerchuk and Seth Godin and Robin Sharma. And that's how that really took off. And we've done 5 summits. And then COVID happened and we had to pause our in-person events, but now they're back. So I'm super excited to be able to do in-person things again and design super memorable experiences for people.
I love it, man. So take us to that 2014. So like, you know, and I obviously 05 to 14 is a gap, right? There's a, like we just like talked about 9 years and like 34 seconds, right? Yeah. 05, I quit the Strategic Coach and then dabbled over here. And next thing I know, I was kicking ass over there. You know, there's a one of my favorite quotes is that success has many fathers and failure is an orphan. You know, so I think like we always kind of talk, you know, not to say you weren't not successful in these other areas, but clearly this is the thing that's like lit your fire. Yeah. What was that? I mean, you got into real estate. Was that directly what you did right after Strategic Coach, or were you doing other stuff? So
it started with marketing, coaching, where I was almost like a part-time CMO for different companies. And that worked. I mean, this is back then. It was like 100,000 a year in revenue. And I thought that was my dream come true back then. And then throughout those years, there was actually a huge challenge where my first marriage ended in 2007 in divorce. I got super depressed to the point where I was contemplating suicide, and it was like it was a dark period. And I had a son who was 3 at the time, and because he was around, I thought this is not even an option. Like, I can't do that to him. So and his name is Michael. Very grateful to him, and that turned things around. I turned myself around. It was challenging. but that was the lowest point since. And from there, everything started going up. And then I met a client who was in the real estate space, helped them scale their business, and the commissions were way bigger than my marketing fees. So I stopped all the marketing consulting, partnered with them, got my license, and then that's what led me into real estate. And it was a very specific niche, which is selling pre-construction condo investments to investors in Toronto, which is a big thing here.
Got it.
And
Okay.
like I was at like literally being featured in magazines and winning awards and all of that, which was awesome, except I never wanted to do it. And it's very challenging to explain to people that how is it that you're making a lot of money and you're depressed or anxious or not liking it? But it was never me, and it was never aligned with my identity and who I am and what I wanted to do. It did, however, afford me the chance to figure those things out and start Archangel throughout that process. So I will be forever grateful.
Yeah, it's kind of funny, right? Like I mean, I walked away from a 7-figure gig. You know, like if people were like, I mean, like with nothing else to do. Like, and I ended up selling my ownership in the deal, but like that was, I mean, for the same reason. I was just like, I wasn't happy. You know, I was like, I don't want to do this. It took me 20 years to hit that point, but I think it, you know, it's funny when I had a lot of success pretty young. I was 25 when I had my first like high growth company. And I remember I had this moment. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this because of what you just said. I had this moment, I was probably 27, 28, and I had a few $100,000 in the bank and I was making a lot of money. And I was like, it doesn't feel any different. Felt like, I'm like, this is not as sweet as the first 10 grand I made. That was way sweeter. I remember the first 10 grand I made when I was at like 0 and I went to 10. And I was like, I mean, that number felt way sweeter than it. That there's not been any number since that's felt as sweet as that number. So I remember I had this realization having, you know, I had almost $10 million company, I was making a lot of money. But I was like, this doesn't feel any different. It actually just feels like, it's almost just feels like I'm like having coffee in the morning. Just I'm making money. I'm not any happier than I was before. And so I had this, it was a gift, which was, hey, money is not going to make you happy, dude. And then I spent the next 15 years chasing money, but that's another story. So I'd love to hear your thoughts on that. Like you sounds like you kind of had that moment too.
Totally. And I don't know if there's a way to skip it, skip that part of the journey. Maybe if people are listening, there is, but, or listening to our stories. However, now I feel the joy and I feel like the fulfillment when the money piece is connected to stories. And the stories are what people are sharing with me in terms of how the impact has happened or how, because of either working with me or being a part of things that I'm doing, it's touched their lives, it's changed their lives, it's helped them change other people's lives. And collecting those stories are my currency.
Yeah.
Right. And it's what I live for. And then thinking of myself as an artist, and I think all of us are in some capacity, even if we don't identify with that word, to figure out what is the art you're creating and then creating art that you're proud of. We just did an event a few weeks ago that even though I've done, I don't know, hundreds of events in my life, I've never been more proud of one because I designed the event that I wished I could have attended. And I didn't hold back on anything. I didn't do what was supposed to happen at an event. It was, no, this is exactly the way I would do it. And it was very different and unique. And the feedback has been off the charts amazing.
Well, can you give me a couple examples of like, because everyone goes to these events and it's like cookie cutter, and so I'd love to hear like what are things you felt like you would want if you were a participant that you ended up doing that people were like blown away by.
For sure. And to give context, there were 50 attendees and it was 10,000 a ticket. So it wasn't, we also do 3,000 people events, which is a totally different energy. But the way I wanted this to work is that first I would invite 50 people where every single person coming has a gift to share with the other 49, whether it's a story or advice or expertise or something. And they all match me in terms of alignment of personality and, you know, the kindness, the giving, all that stuff. Then It would have to be in a warm place because I'm in Toronto and it's snowing today and I don't want to be here. So we did it in Del Mar. And one of the nicest properties is at the Fairmont Grand Del Mar. Okay. And that was for part of it. But then when I go to events, and this is maybe just me, but I think a lot of people will resonate. I don't like being in the room. I like being in the hallway. Like I derive a lot of my value from the intimate conversations that happen on, during lunch and in the evenings, and versus learning and sitting and just hearing people speak. So I thought, instead of 80% speaking and 20% connection, let's make it 80% connection and 20% speaking. Nice. So we did that and designed it completely custom, where every single person who came, I spoke to every one of them before the event to figure out what they needed, what resources they needed, what connections. And then I literally designed 50 agendas for 50 different people. So it was like a choose your own adventure experience for every single person, where I was writing a story for each of them. And then we also rented a private mansion for parts of the event, so that it wasn't just the same environment. There was shifts in environment, and then we had best private chefs. And it was just I have 100 of these kinds of ideas that all went into this one event. And then we had surprise performances. A guy who's meant a lot to me in my life, as not necessarily a mentor because he never personally taught me, but his work helped me, is a guy named Jay Abraham, who you may know. So we had a surprise guest for a part of it. Jeff Spencer actually opened the event with one of his amazing, he was the only speaker. Jeff was the only speaker at the event.
That's awesome.
Then we had musical performances, because I love infusing music. So we had all kinds of surprises there. Then we did the most epic closing party. And I don't even want to explain it, but it was like there were circus performers and DJ and makeup stuff. And it was like an Avatar themed event. It was just like, literally, I was giddy as an attendee, even though I was producing.
I love it, man.
Thank you.
Oh man, we have a lot of similarities. I did something not exactly the same thing, but I did something like that for my 40th birthday, where since you're a event guy, you'll love this. Where we brought all of our 100 of our closest friends together. I have a twin brother, so we always have big birthdays, and then we planned this. We're in the next room over, it's in this hotel in Scottsdale, Arizona, and the next ballroom over, we had built. Well, I'll get there in a second. So we're in the middle of doing our speeches, and all of a sudden there's these pounding on the door, and we hired these Mexican lucha libres, and they'd set up a whole wrestling ring, legit, with an announcer and ring girls and everything and they come pounding on it. We're doing speeches, my wife's doing a speech, my brother's doing a speech, and we're thanking all of our friends who flew in for this party. And all of a sudden these 8 enormous lucha libres come in, and they pick us up and carry us, and then to this next room, and everyone's like, what the fuck's going on? And we go in the next room, and it's fully spotlit, and there's a whole wrestling ring, and then they proceed to have 4 wrestling matches. It was incredible.
Perfect.
But it was just fucking with people, right? Showing them a good time. You made me think about that. So that's cool. So I love this idea of connecting passion with profitability, number one, but doing it in a way where you're curating people's experiences to help them level up. That's what I just heard you say. So in 14, when you were, highly successful in real estate and, making the money, was there an itch, something that was I need to go do this other thing because this is a calling for it? What was it that got you to throw your hat in the ring?
An important part of the story is that in 2009, when I was making the decision to do the real estate, I also had the Archangel idea. And I actually, I sent an email to my mom back then. I was like, this is what Archangel, I have this idea for this business that I want to do, and this is what it is. And, it was a fork in the road of, do I do the Archangel thing, which seemed like a high risk, or do I do the real estate thing, which was probably a lower risk, but not exactly what I wanted to do? And I chose real estate because of essentially money. It was I had to pay the bills, and I had to figure that out. But the whole time I had this in the back of my head of, when I turn 40, I want to start Archangel. 40 is, what year would that have been? 2016.
Okay.
But in 20, because of the real estate, the money was good. I started joining things. I joined a group called Genius Network, which is run by Polish. And this is 2012. At the very first event I attend, with massive imposter syndrome and all of that, and it's assigned seating. I sit down at my table, and my table was Naveen Jain, who's this like billionaire guy building rockets to go to the moon and all kinds of stuff. Peter Diamandis from X Prize, and then Ray Kurzweil, who's like the smartest human on the planet. Yeah. And that's the table they sat me at.
Nice.
But I got to sit.
That's a great table.
That's wild. But I'm sitting next to Peter, who's all about abundance and exponential thinking. And I was so charged up that on the plane ride home, I said, I'm not waiting till I'm 40. I'm starting this Archangel thing now, and let's start planning. And that's how that started. So that by 2014 or January 2014, we did our first event.
And so tell us about that. Like, so you had the idea, you had it like, sketched out in your mind. What was the, is it a bigger version of what it was then, or was it tell us what was the idea then? I'm going to curate this cool event. I mean, I know we interviewed Joe on the show a couple weeks ago, and I know of Joe and what he's doing in Genius Network. Was it like your version of that? Like, what was Archangel at its inception?
Mastermind-ish, and a lot of people use that word, or maybe even abuse that word.
Sure.
But bringing people together who are like me, where they're entrepreneurial and they care about helping other people. And that was always the intention of building community from the beginning, of people that would resonate with me. And the first event was fun because it was novel and no one really knew that I had this event background. So we made an offer. I said, at the time, the ticket is $500, but don't pay me. And I'm going to spend a whole day teaching all this awesome marketing stuff that really works really well. Just RSVP, attend the event, and only pay me after if you think it was worth it.
Wait, only pay me after it if you think it was worth it. So you're like, I'll take the risk on this. That's a good offer. I like that.
Thanks. And that's how everything started. And people were blown away. That's how the whole thing started. And then I realized, and this is in January in Toronto. So I thought none of my American friends are going to want to fly here in the middle of a blizzard. So after that, we started doing them in either LA or San Diego in the January timeframe. So we would do like a mastermind event, and just that grew and kept getting.
How many people? Can I ask a question though? I want to interrupt. How many people came to that first event you did?
120.
Wow. Okay. And so these were friends and friends of friends, I'm assuming, or people like, was it all kind of a warm audience, more or less?
Half were warm and the other half were invited by those people. So what I had done for the year previous was building social capital, like literally gifting my time in every possible way to help people. So coffees or lunches or the small little gatherings of people to connect them, dinners, whatever it took to network and build relationships with the people that I thought could one day attend these events. So that when I made the invitation, it was like, oh yeah, I'm willing to take a chance on what you're doing.
Oh, it's so smart.
Thanks.
So I love that. I called it the give, take. Gave twice, and then you didn't even take. It was give, ask. It was like, if I provide value, and out of the 120, did 120 pay the $500?
It was the majority, like 80 or 90%. I can.
Screw the 10% that didn't. They were just, we call those plate lickers in the United States.
Actually, well, to be fair, I would say 99% of them at some point became a client or attended an event. They may not have done it right away, and maybe some people had affordability issues and
sure,
all that kind of stuff. But yeah, it launched everything for us.
That's amazing. So you did the event, and then I'm sure you felt pretty vindicated by that. I mean, that's a success by any measurement. $60,000 of people's, saying, "Hey, we believe in this," and you even gave them the out. They didn't have to do that. They chose to do that. And so was that it sounds like that became like a lot of, did you get a lot of confidence from that and then took that and ran with it? Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, I think, well, I mean, I have background in producing events. So I didn't have the anxiety of that component, which a lot of people have.
Sure.
That was a bit of an unfair advantage. But it was a risk of building the brand of this new type of event. And it totally created momentum to keep doing it. But there was a lot of initial energy that had to be put in to constantly be building relationship and inviting people. And not everyone can attend events. Not the timing doesn't always work. And then some people just, it's not a yes yet because they don't know what to expect. So there's a lot of energy that kept going into the beginning. And then once, my advice always is focus on building and deepening relationships and the give thing, and add another 10 gives in that sequence.
Yeah. Give to the 10th power.
Yeah. But then, there's a cool story, if you want me to share it, of how I had 1,500 people at the first big summit.
Yeah, please. That's where I was going next, actually.
Because that's a big jump. And I love reverse engineering puzzles. So I knew that to build a brand or a reputation as a bigger event, I'd have to have at least 1,000 people for it to make sense. And I thought, okay, to have 1,000 people, I need some really big keynote speakers that are well regarded and well recognized. And, Seth Godin was one of the people I wanted for sure, because I'm still a huge fan, but back then I didn't know him and I had no connection to him. I had to figure that part out. And Gary Vee at the time was really building his personal brand. So I thought, okay, if I can figure out the Gary thing, and the way that happened is that he had a book launch. So I said, if I buy, I think it was like 3,000 copies of your book, would you come and speak? And he's like, yeah. And that's how that started. And then the Seth is my favorite story. So I don't know if you can see behind me, but I have all of his books like on my shelves behind. Like, I love his work, and I'm a huge fan of his and a huge student of his. And I had no connection to him. He hates flying. And I figured just offering money wouldn't be the only thing that would clinch him as a speaker. So I thought, what do I say? And I want to share my pitch that got him to say yes, because I think it's useful, not just in this context, but in anything we're doing. So the only thing I knew is that he checked his email, and he responds to emails, which I think is still nuts. But so I'm like, Seth, my name is Giovanni. I'm your biggest fan, and I know you've heard that a million times, and I've read all your books, and I'm sure you've heard that a million times. But here's the thing you haven't heard a million times. I want to show you how I am your case study. How not only have I read all your books, but I've actually implemented your work and what it resulted in, so that I'm a success story for you. And I laid it all out like Purple Cow, and here's how I use that, and Tribes, here's how I use that. And the end of it was, and because of me being a success story of your work, it's allowed me to create this event that only exists because of you. And it would be amazing to come full circle if you came and spoke at this first event that exists only because I'm your student. And his response was something like, how the hell do I say no to this? And now we've developed a relationship. He's spoken at like 4 of our events, and I love him. But the thing that was in my brain was, what does he want?
Yeah.
Right? So he's successful. He has all these best-selling books. A lot of people know him. So it's not like he needs another stage. And what I realized, that when someone is in that position, the thing I think they want most is relevance, like to know that their work matters, that it wasn't just a waste of their life. It's that someone actually paid attention and listened through all of the blood, sweat, and tears that he's been through. And that's how that happened. And then everything fell into place. So
I'm assuming when you put an event on with 1,000 or 1,500 people, those aren't just warm relationships at that point, or even friends of friends. So was there a market? Were you selling like cold traffic? Were you selling tickets to people you didn't know? How did you get that many people to show up?
Simple as business plan. And it's all reverse engineered. So confirming Gary, Seth, and then Robin Sharma was the third one. And I met Robin somewhere because he's also based in Toronto. And then I was like, hey, Gary and Seth are coming. Do you want to? And he's like, yeah, that sounds cool. So now that I have them all confirmed, I thought, okay, what's the way to have the right people in the room? And I have this theory of like, edification is the most important tool, and to find people who already have communities built of people that you can serve, where they're willing to edify you to their people. So I thought, okay, who do I know that already has communities of entrepreneurs? And people like who are friends, like Jason Gaynor, if you know Jason, JJ Virgin. And I reached out to them saying, hey, do you want to speak on the same stage as Robin, Gary, and Seth? And it's like, of course I do. And then if someone is on a big platform, chances are they're going to be okay promoting it. And now I have people who have established communities all talking about our event. So to me, that's how everyone does it. Like it's all community partnership collaboration built, which to me is way more effective than cold traffic or just doing things what I think is the hard way.
Yeah, it makes sense, because of the hard way, there's the trust factor. You have to overcome the trust factor, right?
Yeah.
And to your point, like through just, you have social you have your own social capital, but B, you have the social proof of it being a good event because you have these like big speakers, and then you're tying these community builders to it, so they get more social capital and social proof of their connection. And then, of course, why would they not? Like them in promoting it to their people just supports what they're trying to create, to your point, which is that, hey, I'm relevant and that I'm creating value and that I have something to say and people want to hear from me. That's genius.
Thank you. One of Seth's books, This is Marketing, he actually talks about, there's one line that I think is so important, that people are always trying to elevate or protect their status. And I think if you can give people an opportunity to increase their status, it lifts you both up. Right. So if I give, and same with the film projects we're doing now. So now I can say, hey, we've produced a film that's won Emmy Awards. We're working on our next film. Would you like to be in it? It's kind of like, okay, that's interesting. Versus you don't know me, and I'm working on one of 10 trillion new film projects.
Yeah.
There's always, and everyone, even if you don't have these kinds of things yet, there's always a way to figure out how to help someone else elevate their status to the people that they already know.
That makes total sense. So let's kind of go down that rabbit hole a little bit, because I think a lot of people who are hearing this are like, I can't do this. Giovanni's just smart, and like he's clever, and he gets it, and he's obviously he's gifted, if you will, in this way, and I just don't have that. I don't see it that way. I could never have figured out what he figured out. So what do you think, like, for an entrepreneur or CEO entrepreneur, like someone that's trying to elevate in what's now a very noisy world, right? From a promotion standpoint, what do you think? What advice would you give them?
Well, I will challenge the gifted thing, because I think everyone is gifted. And it doesn't need to necessarily mean high IQ. I think we all have a handful of things that make us different. And oftentimes those things, we think it's a curse or a negative, because it makes us stand out. And if we harness those things, especially if it could add value to other people, and we turn it, almost practice it and strengthen it like a muscle, it becomes a superpower. And then to figure out how we can best serve or use those things to impact other people. And I'll give you a real life sort of case study from myself. I always had a dream of launching a high level, I'll use the word mastermind again. It's not exactly what it is, but I'll just use that word for context, mastermind group. And didn't launch for a long time because of imposter syndrome, because what I actually wanted was everyone who's a member of this group to be further down the entrepreneurial path than I am. So they almost act as like my board of advisors. And it's a group that we now have called Archangel Council, where it's $50K a year to be a member. And the way I launched it was a massive realization I had that is going to be useful for anyone listening or watching. And it's that none of the people who joined cared that they were ahead of me. They only cared that I could get them further ahead. Right? So what they needed from me, and this is wild that I still have to talk about this, is that when you're successful or you're the CEO or a founder, people are always coming to you with their problems, and you need an outlet. You need to go to other people, but you need peers. And it's
Right.
the more successful you become, the harder it is to make friends. It's such a funny, weird thing to say. And not everyone is good at this curation thing that I am. And I'm amazing at connecting people. So they look to me for my gift of connection and curation so that they don't have to, because it's a kryptonite for them. And it's a
Right.
superpower for me. Even though they're ahead of me, or maybe not anymore, but back then it was like that. So the idea is, if you can figure out what someone's path is and where they want to be in the future and why they can't get there, and how your gift is uniquely qualified to help them get there faster, or you can help someone get their time back or buy back their time, that is very valuable.
Right.
And we all can do that. Every single person can try to figure that out.
I love that, man. That's so smart. I have a good friend, Justin Donald, who started a mastermind called Lifestyle Investor, and it's all about like people replacing their income with this investment income so that they can buy back their time. And I told him, I said, "You're genius." I mean, it grew like crazy. I'm like, you're giving people this thing that's really hard to get, right? But to your point, people want to learn. People want to be in bigger rooms, right? They want to be shoulder to shoulder with people they can learn from, and it's hard to find. I've kind of created mine really haphazardly through. Have you done much with Entrepreneurs Organization?
I know a lot of people who are members, but I've not personally done stuff with the organization.
Yeah, so I mean, I was my first kind of foray into like peer to peer learning, and then since then I've gotten involved with the organization called Tiger 21, which is kind of like where people go after they sell their business. But same idea, right? And they're hard, you know. It's hard to find those rooms, and so especially even then, it's not perfect. But if you're, it sounds like you this is your gift, right? Of being this person that can curate groups of people and putting the right people in the room. Like if they came to that room and they're like, "Who are all these duds?" You know, like I highly doubt they would. You know, then they're not going to find value in that, right? But finding like being able to match people up, that's honestly, it's a massive gift, and it's amazing that you've been able to recognize that and to get over any type of imposter syndrome to be able to do something with it. So I want to ask a question about that, and I know we got about 14 minutes left. I want to honor your time. Yeah, like, you know, for some people, imposter syndrome gets in the way. It stops them, makes them never start. Like, what are your thoughts on that? Like, how did you work through that? And what are your ideas around that not being a hurdle for people if they really want to move forward?
I think I'm safe to say this without breaking any privacy. The event I just did, where, you know, some people have revenue of 100 million a year kind of thing, and some other people have giant platforms, whatever it is, things that other people find impressive. The majority of them privately told me they have some kind of imposter syndrome.
Mm.
And it always blows me away. And it's like, really? That's so interesting, because and I love analogies, and I always think of journeys and odysseys, or that we're all walking some kind of path with our life, and that we hit milestone points of this journey, but there's always places where we get stuck or we feel like we don't know the answers. Even if you are super successful in one part of your life, there are other parts where you don't have answers. And in those areas, you feel like an imposter. I think for anyone listening, if you feel imposter syndrome, the good news is you aren't an imposter, because imposters can't have imposter syndrome.
Mm.
They're actually like the reason you have it is because you are thinking about a bigger and better future for yourself, and there's this gap between where you are and where you want to be, and you're trying to figure out how to get there, and you feel like you don't have enough info yet, or enough skill, or whatever it is, but you want to genuinely get to this better place, and probably by helping a lot of other people. And the imposter syndrome is this, like, I secretly don't want people to know all my shit right now, or whatever that could be, but you care. Actual imposters don't care. Like they literally don't. So take it as almost like a GPS signal that you're on the right path, and that anything important to you requires discomfort. It's outside of your comfort zone, and we want the safety of that safe feeling of our comfort zone, but growth happens outside of there. And part of the journey is to step outside the comfort zone. It helps if you have guidance or a mentor or a coach or whatever that looks like. But if you're feeling those feelings, it's actually okay. Not only okay, to me, it's a good sign. It's like you're on the path.
Totally. I love it, man. I have a good friend, Doug Irwin, who says that's when you know you're butting up against your own edge.
Right.
That's when you feel that uncomfort of, to your point, not knowing, not having enough information. You being a former strategic coach colleague, I'm a 6'3", 8'3". So I need enough information. I'm super uncomfortable until I hit that 6, on fact finding. But I love that. I hadn't thought of it that way. That no, you're on a journey, but you don't have enough information. Because think of anything that before you've done it. Once you've done it and then you go do it again, it's like, oh yeah, I know. You do this, then you do this, then you do this, and then that happens, right? To your point, you have that data. So I love that, and I love what you just said about actual imposters don't feel that because they don't give a shit. Right. They're just like, yeah, I know I'm fake. It doesn't matter. Great point. So I want to kind of move around to the movie Dreamer. I mean, man, I don't know. I've always had a dream about making a movie, and I haven't done it yet. Tell us how it came to be. Was that just always like something that you always wanted to do? Like what was the catalyst for you to go out there and create a movie and then make it, obviously it was well received. You won, Emmys from it, but yeah, tell us a little bit about that.
It was my other secret desire from childhood to produce a film. And one of the members of our council group is a guy named Nick Nanton, who is a producer, director. He's won 23 Emmys and produced 60 films. So he approached me saying, hey, listen, do you want to ever collaborate? And it was like almost as good as when I proposed marriage to my now fiance. Are you serious? You want to work with me? So I love Nick and that opportunity. And he said, yeah, you come up with the idea and the vision, because that's your thing. And, figure out who you want in the film, the story, all that. And then I'll execute with my team. And we partnered and collaborated. And that's how it started. So the idea of Dreamer and what we want to do, or I guess what I want to do, is a new genre called real life superhero films. So it's people that you and I actually know that most people don't know, that are inspiring, have amazing stories somehow, that have either impacted a lot of people or they've gone through some kind of hero's journey themselves that I think will resonate with people to inspire them to live better lives. And that's how it started. Dreamer finished production in 2020, which is weird. So I'm winning Emmys sitting in my freaking family room watching on TV instead of being in a room with a tuxedo. But whatever. I'm hoping there's more opportunities.
Yeah.
And yeah, now the next one is in production. It's called Hero. And I hope to do one every 1 or 2 years. And I just love, and the cool thing now is we're going to connect our film projects to our events. Yeah. So our next summit, which is October of this year, will be connected to our third film. So people who are going to be in the movie will be at the event. And then we're doing a red carpet premiere of Hero at the same event. So it's like everything's kind of connected.
Oh, that's incredible, man. Congratulations on that, by the way. That's no small feat to get to do that. And I don't know if you want to answer this question or not, but I'm going to ask anyway, because I'm curious. So like, what does it cost to make a movie like that? Do you feel comfortable answering that?
It's in the hundreds of thousands.
And do you get the money back, or is it just like, nope? It's like, is there money in it?
Really cool thing. So we have producer spots. It's kind of like crowdfunding for bucket list experiences. So we people can become a producer of one of our films. and it's not an investment. There's no like ROI or any of that kind of stuff. What they're doing is essentially paying for epic experiences, and they come to the shoots. And, you know, the next shoot is in Nashville with some music stars. And then we design events around the shoots so that the whole thing is experiential.
Oh, it's incredible. What's the minimum buy-in for that?
Well, I don't want to quote anything in case they change in the future, and then there's a recording of me saying numbers. But
okay.
If someone's interested, just please reach out to me, and I can.
Yeah. Offline, you can slide it on a piece of paper that dissolves.
I made that mistake in the past where I quoted something, and then later I was like, "Oh man, that changed." So yeah,
gotcha.
I think it's smarter.
You can't take it back. I gotcha. I appreciate it. Man, I know we're rounding the bend here, and I want to get you out on time. So look, every episode of the Greatness Machine, we always end on the same question. And first and foremost, Giovanni, like this has been really fun for me, and you're an incredible guy, and my instincts are always good. And we didn't know each other, but like I said, I've been kind of watching from afar, and I love the stuff you're doing. I'm like, man, this guy, like, he's doing it. Like, I really like what he's doing, and it's yeah, you caught my attention. And the fact that you and Jeff spoke highly of you, it's like, yeah. No wonder. But I always like to end on this last question. I could probably sit here for another 2 hours asking you questions, but in out of respect for your time, I want to end on time. But yeah, final question. We always ask all of our guests this: what is the number one barrier to creating greatness in the world that you overcome in your life, and how did you overcome it?
Ooh. We're always our own bottlenecks. I think the biggest barrier is the ideas implanted into our brains growing up about what our limitations are, especially around our identities. So we're taught who we are, in quotes, based on what the adults and all of our environment tells us. And I think the solution is to start getting curious about things that you believe to be true, to say, what if the opposite were true? Or what if something was different? And especially if you feel like something's off. And when people feel like something's off, they call it depression or anxiety. And to me, those things, they're for sure there's clinical versions of them. I also think there's versions of them that is your body's GPS system simply telling you you're off course. And that if you can navigate to figure out what that path actually is, you'll start to experience the opposite emotions.
I love it, man. What a great episode of the Greatness Machine. If I don't say so myself. Man, so look, you're doing so many cool things. And I mean, I think every entrepreneur needs to check out the work, and they can get involved in some of the stuff you're doing. What are some ways people can learn more, get involved with Archangel, any of the stuff that you're working on? What's the best way for them to learn more?
First, I always say, follow me on Instagram, find me and DM me and say that you heard this, and I will respond and say hi to you. Dreamer, you can watch on Apple and Google and Amazon if you're in the US and some other English-speaking countries, and check that out too. And I think you'll love the film. And yeah, reach out. Come to one of our events. Those are always fun.
Love it, man. Giovanni, so much gratitude having you here on the Greatness Machine. You're a badass like I've not met in very often, and I love all the greatness you're pouring into the world, and I'm really excited to see what continues to happen on your journey. But so much gratitude. Thank you, my friend.
Thank you for having me.
Very welcome. And guys, listen, go check it out. You can go check out. Follow him on social media. We'll put all your connections for Giovanni in the show notes. So check that out. Share this episode. I mean, they're I selfishly just like my brain's like popping on all these amazing like just anecdotes and wisdom pieces that Giovanni gave. So share this. As leaders, we're givers. Share this episode with people that need to hear it. And until next time, we love you. Peace out. You are listening to The Greatness Machine, and that's a wrap for today. Listen, if you love what you heard, subscribe to the show on whatever podcast platform that you're tuning in on so that you don't miss any of our future episodes. We have tons of great people coming on, and we're stoked to have you here to enjoy it with us.
leave us a review. Tell us what you love most about this particular episode. We love getting the reviews. We love to see what you guys love most. And if this particular episode, made you think of someone who's leveling up in their business and in their life, print screen, share it with them. Leaders are the best givers. And after all, we're all here to support and grow with each other. And in case you want to see some of the fun behind the scenes shots or some of the things that we're doing, I'm actually writing about this in my weekly newsletter. Go to www.therealdarius.com and subscribe to my newsletter. We're talking about fun things like business and life and mindfulness and cryptocurrencies and gosh, I don't even know, everything and anything, but it's tons of fun stuff I write about. I try to get it out on a weekly basis. You can subscribe at www.therealdarius.com. And with that said, look, thank you guys so much. I appreciate you. I love you. Peace. We're out of here. See you guys on the next one.
She's my lover.